Kia ora koutou katoa. Tēnā koe mātua, thank you for your welcome and welcoming us to this whare. I am going to give you the 8-minute vision for our tai tamariki. And when I started thinking about this, I was like, okay, what do I see our vision for our young people? And so this picture here is of my kōtiro. And I thought, this is what I want. This is my kōtiro te atawhai. What do I want for my baby when she grows up? What do I want for all of our children? So let's start off with why tai tamariki Māori. You know, let's face it, the stats really do suck. You know, we know that Māori are doing much worse than their other ethnic peers. We know that there's all these not so great disparities. But one of the things that I want to share with you today is this, what I call the eyeball graph. And what it's kind of doing is that it's showing how well our young people, our Māori young people are doing between 2001 and 2012, which is the latest data that we have. And what I want you to notice are the green bits. And the green bits are the bits that have improved. And this is not what you see in the media. So our young people are making huge advances in these sorts of areas. So, you know, 66% reduction in weekly cigarette use, huge reductions in substance use, dangerous driving. If you look at suicide attempt, that's decreased. The grey dots, though, are things that have not changed. If we look up here, we can see that, you know, mostly things at school are doing okay, but young people saying that adults in their school don't care has not changed. And I'll draw your attention over here to the red bits. These are the areas that have not improved. These are the areas that have gotten worse. And what I want you to know about these are the areas that young people cannot change themselves. So they are factors like parents worrying about not having enough money for kai, not enough money for food, not being able to get a part-time job. And that's because there is such few jobs for our young people. They're in competition against adults who are looking for part-time work, and access to GPs. So these are ultimately things that our young people cannot change themselves. They are making great progress in lots of other areas. I also want to say that the latest data we have is 2012, and we're trying to get the survey funded again so we can have more up-to-date data. We don't know whether this is increasing or what's happening, but for those of us who are out there, it seems like things might not be as cheery. The other thing that I want to kind of raise is that equity in education. So if we think that one of the major things that we need to do is improve education. Some work by one of my colleagues at the University of Auckland talks about, she'd found that 20% of the time our teachers were making decisions about whether students will succeed by ethnicity alone. And this is a really alarming factor. And the other thing is that when she looked at those, how teachers attributed that, they consistently rated Māori lower than any other ethnic group. If we look at it even further, what they did was that they tested those children, and they went out and they tested them, and they found that actually teachers were underestimating our tamariki by 63% of the time, and overestimating Pākehā young people 65% of the time. So this makes me angry sad. Has anyone seen, anyone who has little children, there's a movie, Sad Mad, where basically our children should not have to be exceptional to do well in education. Yeah? This is saying that our Māori young people have to be exceptional just to get by. So, time for change. I just want to tell you a little bit about my cousin who, you know, grew up in Kaikohe, did really well, went to school, graduated, got into university, did a co-joint law accounting degree at AUT. He called me up and he said, "Hey, Cuz, will you come and cheer for me when I do my walk down Queen Street? Because Mum and Dad can't take time off work to come and watch me." And I went, "Yep, sure, sweet, I'll be there." And I was the proud cousin going, "Yeah." And I said to him, "So what are you going to do now, bub?" And he goes, "Oh, well, most other people have got jobs, but I can't get a job." And I'm like, "How come?" And he said, "Well, a lot of the jobs in law, you have to do internships, which means that you work for free." He said, "Mum and Dad live in Kaikohe. I can't get a student loan. I can't work for free." And I felt really aroha for him. I thought, this is not okay. We tell our kids, if you do good and you do well at school and you go to university, you're going to do really great. And here he was, this really well-educated young man, couldn't get a job. He tried really unsuccessfully for 3 months, and then he went off and did a course in teaching English as a second language, and now living in Taiwan, teaching English as a second language. So yeah, if you work hard, then theoretically you're supposed to do well. But there are lots of factors going on that mean that our society is not equal. Now, one of my really amazing mentors and colleagues when I did my PhD in the US, Professor Blum, said ethnic minorities don't have what he calls social capital, which he calls "I know a guy." So if my cousin had someone who knew a guy, they might have helped him get his foot in the door. And I think that's where, I hope that's starting to seed some ideas in your minds about where philanthropy might actually be helpful. Just before I go into that, I just want to talk a little bit about what works for Marty. And one of my master's students did some work looking at our national data and looking at whether cultural connectedness and being proud to be Māori was associated with better mental health outcomes. And what she found was, yep, actually being a strong cultural identity in an environment which limits racism and poverty is strongly protective. And so we can really support the cultural connectedness, but what we need help with is how we deal with the poverty issue and the systems issues and the institutional racism that exists for our children. So when we're doing our little group work and you're thinking a little bit about what the role of philanthropy might be, I want you to think about these things. What do you currently do that impacts on Māori? What systems do we address by funding this program or project? You know, what is it that you're actually doing at a systematic level? What is success, and how can we possibly be designing things differently? And how can this be more sustainable for Māori? So what I want to kind of talk about the role of philanthropy is that providing one-off opportunities, like sending young people on camps and outdoor experiences, can be really powerful and life-changing moments for young people. But there's increasing evidence that young people need a long-term network of systems that support them to thrive and transition into adulthood. One-off stuff doesn't work, yeah? If we genuinely want to support our tamariki, and we have to invest in these tricky, complex, big picture issues. I also want to be really clear that philanthropy shouldn't be the plug that's filling gaps in our government's policies, inadequate policies for young people. Philanthropy should not and does not replace good policy and integrated systems. I think this is where Māori communities need the assistance of philanthropy to help demonstrate to our government that they can do a better job by allowing Māori communities to have a safe space to create strategies and programs, and sometimes fail. Look at strategies that are culturally relevant, that aren't punitive, and are strengths-based. And another really important sort of nerdy research perspective is that we need to be able to evaluate these things. If we don't evaluate them, then we can't scale them up and we can't go back to government and say, look, this is effective. So there's lots of really good stuff happening out there. People are doing a fabulous job, but we need to be able to prove that this stuff makes a difference and is working. Finally, I think one of the really major things for philanthropy is that you guys are socially connected. You do have networks and you can be really powerful in helping what to prioritise in our society. And so you can be advocating for fair and equitable policies and programs. So, a new vision. I sort of saw this one on Twitter a couple of days ago. Whether or not you like Norman Kirk, I sort of think the concepts are really important. People don't want much, just somewhere to live, something to do, someone to love, and something to hope for. And that's what I hope for all our tamariki. And then also this other really, Dame Whina and her wish for our tamariki. And we need strong leadership and vision. But we also need best evidence and resources and environments that basically allow all of our tamariki to grow up and communities that support them in whatever they want to do. My vision is a really simple one, and that they are around those really simple things. There might be different ways of doing it and doing that, and each community and iwi will have a different way of moving that forward. But fundamentally, it's about making sure our children all have those fundamental basic human needs. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.